Hey everyone, it's Corey of Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran that started the Blue Falcon Board Gaming Group in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board gaming, as well as to promote board games to the community by hosting and co-hosting free events. Today, I've got Ammon Anderson with me. Welcome.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So, who's Ammon outside of board games?
You know what? Now it's always board games all the time. Um, Prior to that, I my background is in graphic design, and I was a corporate designer for Nationwide Insurance, and I lived in Columbus, Ohio, for 20 years. And so I did like prototyping and project management, product design, and brochure design stuff like that.
Okay. Are you still in the Ohio area, or have you moved since then?
No, about 3 years ago, I moved to Utah because it's got incredible hiking and it's actually beautiful. And I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and so I was heading closer back to family as far as I could get while we have like young kids. So
Gotcha. Yeah, we're about 2.5, 3 hours south of Columbus. So the area that I'm in, it's South Point, and it's literally the most southern tip of Ohio. That's why it's called South Point. But it's right where Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia all touch that little chemical valley.
yeah,
Um, so I can hit all three states in like a 10-minute loop doing the
whoa, that
drive or
is close.
whatever.
Yeah, we my kids and I would love to hike Old Man's Cave and stuff down in southern Ohio when all those years that we lived there. So I haven't been to South Point, but I've been. Oh, spent a lot of time in southern Ohio.
Yeah, the Hocking Hills, it's great. And then if you're ever coming back, check out Ravenwood Castle, man. It's probably 20 minutes outside of Hocking Hills. We've stayed there 3 or 4 times now, and it's a blast.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. We loved hiking down there. It was about 2 hours south of us, so an hour and a half from Columbus. But yeah, yeah, we'll make it back there and we'll go check it out.
Yeah. So how did you get into board games? Maybe more specifically, the modern portion of the hobby. I think everyone basically started out with like Clue, Risk, Live, stuff like that. But was
Mhm.
there anybody in particular that introduced you to the hobby, or is it something you just kind of fell into?
Well, when I first moved to Columbus, a friend in an apartment next door had said, "Why don't you and your wife come over and play a game?" And so we went over, and I had no idea. Like I thought we were going to be playing Clue or something like that, and they pulled out this game called Carcassonne, and I think they called it Carcassonne, and so they didn't know how to pronounce it, and so we played it, and it was super fun. And I was like, "Whoa, this is so much better than like rolling dice and moving a little guy down a track." Um, so from that point on, like I just started like learning about new games and playing new games and built a little bit of a collection. Like had 5 or 6 games for years, and then it wasn't until about 4 years ago when I left Nationwide and I was starting an art company. So just going out on my own, the it was tanking awful, and nobody was buying art. I had a gallery in the local mall, and no one was buying anything. Like COVID killed like any sort of like art. But I had a contract, and so I had to sit in this mall. Um, and I wanted to find something useful to do with my time, but I didn't have a lot to do, and so I started designing a game called Taco, Attack, Conquer, Obsess. It was like a family-friendly card game that was. It's actually really fun. I made the game in about a month, working on it like 12 hours a day while I sat in the mall, and I illustrated it. Mostly because my wife said to me, she said, because I was going to look for an illustrator and I didn't want to illustrate the game, and she said, "No one could do this better than you." And I said, "I don't want to do it." And she said, "Just illustrate 3 cards and then tell me if you like it." And so I agreed to illustrate 3 of the cards, and when I was done with those 3 cards, I really loved it, and I had so much fun working on the cards, and it actually brought people into my space at the store because they wanted to see what I was doing, because I had brought my Wacom tablet, my Wacom screen, and my computer to the mall, and I was working there, and So yeah, I built a game, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't know that I was gonna like change the course of my life. But then I found out that making a game was so much more fun than playing a game. Um, it's like 400,000 times more work than playing a game. Um, but it's satisfying in a way that a game can't be satisfying, and it's frustrating because it's broken. Most of the time you're designing a game, it's broken. And so the whole process is trying to fix it so that like your idea works. And so um, I threw it on Kickstarter, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no fans. I had no base. I just put it up there and thought, okay, if people want this, they're going to buy it, and they did. They 279 people like helped me fund my game, and it was awesome, and I was thrilled at the time, not realizing it was going to be one of the biggest like financial disasters of my life. Um, but we made it, and we shipped it to America, and ran out of money, and so I knew these people needed their games, so I put all of the shipping on my credit card, and I shipped people their games at my cost. So because I wasn't gonna, these people had helped me to like make this thing real. I wasn't gonna not like get them their product. So from there, yeah, I was hooked.
So, learning from that mistake, then, is there anything that you would tell people that are maybe looking at designing their own game now and getting ready to put it on Kickstarter? What kind of tips or advice would you give them to learn from your mistake on it?
Yeah, like I had done like lots of work on it, and I thought I knew. Um, I had uh, done a lot of the work on the financial side of it because like when you make a game and you kickstart a game, you got to wear like 9 different hats, and so um, one of the things that I learned is that you just like so I launched my game right before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and then the prices for everything like skyrocketed, and so part of the reason that the Taco like was the financial like disaster it was really because of COVID hitting at a time. And so like I guess you need to really like pad your numbers, right? Like the cost for shipping during COVID like doubled and then tripled. Same thing for like importation stuff. And I ran into all sorts of problems with the manufacturer that I chose. They were not honest at all. And um, I mean, I could talk about that for a long time, but so basically, like learning to like pad your numbers so that you can accommodate for things that you're not expecting. So like a year and a half, or actually no, like it was this year. So I got Taco back in 2000, and then like the state of Utah sent me like a tax bill for $1,000 this year, saying that they had been going back and doing audits of imported goods, and they were like, "Oh, you owe us taxes for all the importation goods for the state of Utah." And I was like, "What? Holy cow!" So like, there's just so many things that you don't know that you don't know until you do it. And so like, if you think you need $15,000, you really need $25,000 to publish a game. And if you like, and that's kind of where it was at. Like I funded it like $10,200, and then post I got to like 13 or $14,000, but I really needed about $22,000. That was what I really needed to pull it off, and that's not making any money at that point.
So, whenever you're talking about shipping had doubled and tripled and stuff, do you mean domestic shipping or the freight shipping? Because I know
Oh,
the cost of like freight containers. Just listening to like the Stonemeyer live cast and stuff each week,
mm-hmm.
Jamie was talking about, like a shipping container for one of their games. It would have been like $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 pre-COVID, but then at the peak of COVID, it was $35,000 for them to get a
Yeah,
40-foot container shipped.
yeah. I spent like $3,000 to move 7 pallets of games. So
Did you do a print run of 1,000 or 2,000?
it was like I think I ordered 2,000 copies of the game at the time. Like I was gonna, because I was like, I'm gonna sell these in my store, and because I had that store in the mall and stuff, and actually they sold pretty well, um, which was really cool. And but when I had gotten initial quotes, it was going to be like $580 to like buy that little piece of a container. So it just like everything just like went through the roof, and so it just ate through all the funds.
Yeah. Now, is there still a way for people to purchase Taco from you? Do you still have copies left? Were you
Yeah,
able to move all your inventory?
no, we still have it. Actually, a major publisher right now is considering it, taking it to mass, which is like really exciting. Like it's fun to see. Like 3 years later, this my first game is like kind of like maybe getting some legs finally, right? Part of the problem is I didn't know what I was building either. I was building a party game at the time, like it was like a family friendly party game, and um, Kickstarter's not great for launching those types of games. They're not great for card games. They typically what I've learned in the years since is that like people on Kickstarter who want to help fund a game, they're looking to fund like an actual board game, something like it has all these components and pieces. And Taco actually had some of those, which is why I think it funded. The game actually has. I can go grab a copy and show you. Here, give me 1 second. So it looks like this. That's Taco. It's kind of fun. I did all the illustration. Um, but part of the reason I think that it funded is because it didn't feel like a card game. Like it felt like a board game, and because it had like really cool little wooden meeples that were tacos, and it had the taco trophy. And look like this, which is really fun. Big chunky wood piece, and then it had the really cool like play mats that were like all colored, illustrated and stuff that came in the box. So it ended up like feeling very much more like a board game, and it plays, kind of like a Take That board game, but um, it's fun. So I think there's now that I'm like, 4 years into my design career, like I think that I can design a lot better game, and I've actually changed a ton of things about Taco so that it plays faster and better. So for the other publisher, but yeah,
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to buy Taco, where would they go to?
I sell it
You
on
got
Amazon and I sell it on in my Etsy store. So if you look up Levity Games on Etsy or Levity Games on Amazon, you can find it. The Amazon one is like I'm horrible with Amazon, so I think I have to do some updates on the listings so that it'll show up again. It like drops off every so often, then you have to like maintain your listings. So
Yeah. So that was your first one. Is so you've got another one coming out though, and it was
new.
actually the OP that picked it up. So is that your second design, or is that just the second one that's being published?
This is my second design. um, yeah, like what's so cool is that Gnome Hollow is going to the op, and they are actually like when I first started talking to publishers, I was going to kickstart this game. That was the whole plan. So this is my current prototype rule set for Gnome Hollow. They came in these like my prototypes are all in these like cool plastic boxes. Um, so the fun thing about the op is that I didn't know who they were when everything started blowing up. Like I knew a bunch of like company names like KT, GB, BG, or AEG, or a lot of the like hobby brands. But I wasn't really familiar with the op, and when I first met Tony at Gamma, mostly because I was like running to the bathroom to hide from publishers because the the interest level had like it skyrocketed like overnight. So just to be clear, like I took Gnome Hollow to Gamma after I had taken it to Dice Tower West, and at Dice Tower West, I had sat down with John Zinzer, who had sat at my table. I didn't know who he was. He's the CEO of AEG, and someone from Board and Dice, and Bree from who at the time was working for Lucky Duck, and now she's with she's with another company now. She's moved, but and Bree had told me like bring it to Gamma. Like I think Lucky Duck or other publishers might be interested in this game. You need to bring this game. And John Zinser had said very, very nice things about the game. And then walked away, and then they told me who he was, because I didn't know who he was. And then I was like stuck in my chair, like, what the heck? The CEO of AEG's played my game. It told me like this could win awards, and I was like, holy crap. But I only really went to Gamma because I was looking to find a couple like influencers who might like be interested in like promoting it a little bit, who thought it was cute or fun or interesting, and that they would like give me a couple sound bites that I could use. That's why I went. I was never planning to sell this to a publisher. So the first night of Gamma, I met Kurt Covert, and he played my game, and he's the owner of Smirk and Dagger, I think I said. And so he was like, "This is really good. Like, this is so much fun. Like, I love this so much." And he goes, "Can I have a prototype? Do you have a prototype?" And I had brought 4, mostly to give to influencers, not to give to publishers. I didn't think a publisher would be interested in my game. And the second night, so I gave him one of my 4 prototypes, and then the second night, I went to the game night at Gamma. I don't know if you're familiar with Gamma, but like the game night is like it's like a paid night for publishers to like, they rent a table for a few hours for a very, very high price, and they can show off their latest games to influencers and to like board game store owners and like distributors. And so it's like really like a professional like mingle, and there's drinks and then there's games. And so I took it to board game night because Bree had told me to take it to board game night, and there was an empty table, and I was late, and it was just empty. So I just took my game and I put it on the table, not realizing that it was a paid space. And 4 publishers sat down. Well, it was 3 publishers and an influencer sat down. So Todd West from Quackalope sat down before the whole like Quackalope fiasco happened. Or West Todd. I'm sorry, West Todd. And West Todd is like amazing. If you've met him, the guy's like solid person. And the USA president of Lucky Duck sat down, and his name's Scott Morris. And so the director of games at Ivy Studios, Austin, sat down, and another small publisher called Bitewing Games sat down, and his name is Nick. And they sat down and played my game. And at the end, the West Todd stood up and he goes, "Holy shit, I just lost this game. Sorry, you can beep that out if it's not appropriate. But I loved every second of it. This is incredible. I'm going to tell everybody. This game's going to win awards. I love this so much. Blah, 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 blah." And he started shouting at the table. And, like, heads turned to be like, "What is this?" And, like, a huddle formed around my table. And people are, like, putting their phones in. Like, "What is this game?" And they're taking video footage. And now I know all these people. But at the time, I didn't know them. And I was, like, frightened. I was like, it was overwhelming. I was freaking the freak out. I was like, what the heck's happening? And everyone's like, "You gotta talk to him." And we're standing at the table, and like the owner of Lucky Duck walked up, and he goes, in his wonderful French accent, he goes, "So I hear I need to give you a contract for your game today?" And I was like, what the heck? No, I'm not taking offers. And from that point on, it just blew up. And then publishers were sending me their cards with runners and like asking to meet with me and asking to play the game. And so the week was like a blur. It was crazy. And so the third day, that's when I met Tony. And publishers had been like just thronging me the whole morning to talk to me and to see my game and to talk to them. And I'd met some really cool people. Corey from the Dice Tower. He kind of took me under his wing and he's like, "Look, I'm going to give you some coaching. Like, you do want to talk to them, you don't want to talk to them." And he was just a solid guy, and he's become a good friend. But as I was running to hide, because I just needed a break, I was passing this table on the side of the wall, and Tony was looking at this cool thing, and it immediately grabbed me, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? It's so cool." It was fun to talk about anything besides my game. because I hadn't been able to see anything else yet. It was Gnome Hollow constantly, and so we started to talk, and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing here at Gamma?" And so I told him, like, actually, I'm like hiding in the bathroom, like I'm running away, like I just need a break. And um, the guy that was sitting across from me goes, "You do know that he's a publisher, right?" And I was like, "Whoa, never mind. I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna back away slowly." And Tony goes, "No, no, no. You're okay. You look like a guy that needs like a sounding board. Like, tell me what's going on." And so I told him everything, and he ended up hanging out with me during the week. And we became close friends, like so fast because he's just that kind of guy. Tony's like, if you've met him, you know it, and like you feel important when you talk to him. Like he's just that sort of a person. And so had a really awesome experience, and he coached me, and then he played it the next night with another guy, Daniel Burris from Watch It Played or Play It Headquarters. I can't remember the name of his thing, but he just did a review on BGT on his channel. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how where Gnome Hollow came from. It kind of blew up, but is that kind of what you're
Yeah, yeah.
asking?
I mean, that's a good problem to have. I think in the moment you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just so overwhelmed. But like, that's a good problem to have. I'd taken a game that I'm working on the Geek Way, and whenever I started designing it, I had KTBG and All Play in mind. I'm like, okay, these are the two that I want to pitch it to. So I want the artwork, the layout, all of that to kind of suit what they already do.
Yeah,
Um,
that sort of like smaller, like vertical box.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
nice.
so I so I took it to Geekway. I set it up and all of that, and it was during they've got like a prototype alley type event, right? And it's free. You just go in, you set your stuff up. And one of my buddies, he had been working the All Play booth. He had volunteered with him and stuff. So like I knew who the head of All Play was just through him. Like I hadn't talked to him or anything, but I knew what he looked like, right?
Yeah,
So like he walks past the table a few times and he's like eyeballing it. And it's like 5 times he walks past in like a minute. I'm like, all right, this is good. This is good. And then he's like, do I have a sell sheet on this? I was like, nope, but I can get you one. And so he sat
yeah,
down. He's like, tell me about it. So we went through it and everything. And he was like, all right, well, he's like, it's a little too complicated for us. Thanks for showing it and stuff. Like he was super nice. And one of my other buddies that was there, not the one that had been working the table, he after he had left, he had lost it. He's like, what does he mean it's complicated? It's super easy, blah blah blah. And I was like, no, to be fair, at the moment for their typical game, like it's more complicated than what they put out. It's nothing crazy, but most of their rules fit on 1 to 2 sheets. I was
yeah,
like, I'm just happy that I had them in mind when I was designing this, and it caught their CEO's attention. I'm like, I'm taking that as a win. So I'm trying to do the self publishing route now and everything, just because the more I've talked to people, like at first I was like, I just want to pitch it and be hands off, but I'm wanting to do more now. So I'm going to bring it to Kickstarter, stuff like that. I'm working on all of
it's
that,
awesome.
but I just took it as a win that it caught their attention. So for you to have like 13 publishers like, hey, we want
Yeah,
to sign this, that's amazing.
no, like, and I think like you're exactly right. Like, um, like when they're excited or they're showing interest that you have something, right? Um, and the interesting thing is like different publishers come at it different ways. Like he was honest with you and he said, "Hey, like this is a little too heavy for us." And at that point, you can lighten your game. Because I'll play actually like they do that like sort of like um they like making games in that like light midweight where like it's really accessible. And that's kind of like I designed Gnome Hollow to be like sort of like on the lighter end of the midweight scale, on like on the BGG scale, like a 2.25, so to 2.5, somewhere in there, like right in the middle. Um, so I mean, I think what you were doing is exactly right, like taking it and letting people see it, and I think that's the most important thing that a game designer can do. Because how else do you build buzz for your game? How else do you build excitement for your game and find people that are interested? Uh, I think that going to those conventions, and I did the whole convention circuit this year, like, because like Gnome Hollow blew up in April of this year, and so I think I went to like 11 conventions this year. It was a lot. But every time I went to one, the buzz just grew and grew and grew. And so it helped because people started recognize. I had a guy come up to me at Origins in Columbus, Ohio, and I don't know who he was. Never seen him before, talked to him. He was like, "Are you the gnome guy? The gnome game guy?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, can I take a picture with you?" And he like pulled out his phone. He's like, I was like, "Sure." He's like, "Thanks. No one's gonna believe I got this." I was like, "I don't believe you got that, dude. Like, I don't even. Nobody knows who I am." So it was so funny.
Oh, dude, I
But
get it because I just had to go to Home Depot for something. It was something stupid, like really small. It was like one connector piece I needed. I forget what I was even working on. And the cashier's like, "Hey, aren't you making that chicken game?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes."
it's
And she's like,
awesome.
"Yeah, I was at this event. It was a Pride event, and I had a table set up and everything, just showing it off and getting names for interest and stuff like that to build up my
Yeah,
Kickstarter list." And she's like, "I saw it." And she's like, "It looks really fun." She's like, "I'd love to play it." And so I started giving her like, "Hey, here's all of the local meetups and stuff. We've got stuff at Cicada Bookstore. Here's stuff at Slaughter Street Cafe. Here's stuff at the libraries when we do it, blah, blah, blah." But it
yeah.
was just like that first time of like, "Hey, aren't you that guy working on the chicken game?" I was like, "Yes, I love it."
We recognize you. Like that's how you do it. Like, what's your game called?
So it started as the foxes in the hen house, but that felt really generic to me. So now it's hen house heist,
Oh,
and
that's a
I've
good
I've
name.
changed a lot since even since the guy from All Play looked at it. It's changed a lot, and the complicated piece that I feel like killed it with them, I've taken out actually.
Yeah,
Because I kept playtesting. I'm up to like 118 different playtesters right now. Some of them I played multiple times. My play group, thank you all so much for the amount of times that you've played. Um, but there was a group of designers that were out of North Carolina. They came to CharCon in Charleston, West Virginia,
yeah,
and they were just walking by. It was the convention had just started, and I didn't even have a playtest scheduled until like 2 o'clock, and it was noon. And I was like, "Hey, if you guys want to play this, you can." They're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Now, do you want us to play it or do you want us to critique it?" I was like, critique all of it.
smart.
And their thing was the farmer character. So basically, in mine, you've got 12 chicken coops. They're numbered 1 through 12. They're in 3 rows of four. You're chucking dice. You're trying to make combinations to secretly bid on that chicken coop. And you've got little fox tokens. They're numbered 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, and you're secretly putting your bid out and stuff based off of your dice. Well, I had a farmer character that it rotated each turn through characters, and that's what kept track of rounds.
Yeah,
But it had just a few different rule sets, like it would automatically break any ties. It always went last. Its tokens were 2, 3, 3, 4, and it had one less die. So there was a lot of variance between what you
yeah,
would normally be doing for the rest of the game. And their critique was, "Hey, this is too much of a teach on the front end because you're completely, teaching new rules essentially. And from the player's perspective, you're only doing this once per the game. So
yeah,
you have a lot of different rules to remember why you're that character." They're like, "Try it without that. Just have everybody be the fox and try it without that." So the next playtest I did that and it ran so much smoother. I was like, "Yep,
yeah,
this is getting cut."
yeah. And that's
So I think I'm
exactly.
going to offer it as an advanced variant though. Just keep it in
Yep.
there. And it just be an advanced variant because I wanted it to be a like family weight entry level type game, and that does make it a little bit more complicated. But I do like the layer that it adds of it automatically breaking ties. It has
Yeah.
some different value tokens and stuff. So,
No, and that's
but yeah,
exactly like that's exactly like the process, right? Like, and listening to people. I mean, that's the smartest thing you can do as a designer is when people give you feedback. Like, listen to it. I don't always take it, but I always like understand that like when they have an issue with a part of the game, is they may not know the right solution. So like they might be like, well, I think it should do this. And what they're really trying to say is, I'm trying to fix a thing that makes me uncomfortable. And so for me, I always take a stop and I'm like, okay, there's a problem somewhere, and it's like a it's like sandpaper, right? Or a hangnail, like in the game. Like you want to get rid of that right away so that like people can have the best thing. But I've done exactly what you did. Like with Gnome Hollow, I have boards. Um, I'll show you. I have these boards, and I built the game to be much more complicated. And my friend said to me one day, he goes, "Dude, I love your game, but like, it is really hard." Because I had these really cool boards that look like this. And they had these like really specific shapes, right? That like you had to make to get these bonuses. And so he goes, I just want to play this game where I can make any shape I want and I don't have to like plan because I think that would be more fun. And so I made this version of the board, right? So you flip it over, right? So this was my original side. And then I made this side. And this side is where it like blew up and took off. Because people could make any shape they want, they just had to count the number of tiles instead of having to make like a specific like triangle, which is difficult to do. So listening to that feedback and applying it is like so important. Just that one piece of feedback. I did exactly what you're doing, and I left it in the game. But like a friend of mine who loves Gnome Hollow and he's play tested it like 7 or 8 times. They tried to play the hard one, and he goes, "Whoa, I knew it was going to be a little bit harder," but he goes, "That is like double down harder. Like it is like so mind bending." So like I'm like, yeah, like for me it's easy as piece of cake. I'm like, oh, see that I'm planning and I'm doing it. But so building your game and like keeping those pieces, but having like the simplest, most concise rule set is really like smart. It's good feedback.
Yeah, I think it's good too to offer that variant just because you don't want them to get bored with it. So like,
Yeah.
hey, if you feel like you've mastered this portion, flip the board over. Here's a challenge. It gives you something new to master, so it adds that replayability.
Well, and the other thing that this does for me is like, let's say you're playing with your kid, right? Um, your kid can play on this one, and I can play on this one at the same time, and it's like almost uh, like at different
It
levels.
evens out that difference.
Yeah, it evens it out during play. So like your kid can really like still crush you, and not because like you let them win, but because like you're playing a way harder version of the game at the same time. So it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. So there was so I found out about you through Matthew over at Envyborn Games. He had
Yeah, look,
posted an
okay.
article, and the article was from Mojo Nation. So it talks about kind of like what got you designing Gnome Hollow being a car wreck. Do you want to go into that at all?
Sure, yeah, we can talk about that. So, um, I was doing the art thing, and I had kickstarted Taco, and I had sent it around the world, and then like in 2000 on Christmas Eve, I was driving home from my art gallery, and um, it was late, and I'd had a late night because people are grabbing last minute presents. It'd just been an exhausting day, and I had a truck, and I was driving home, and I live about 30 minutes north of where my gallery was at, and so I just minded my own business, sitting in my car, um, truck at a stoplight right in front of American Fork Hospital, and a girl had just gotten a new car for Christmas from her parents, and she was texting, telling her friends about it, and she was so excited, and she didn't see that I was stopped at the stoplight, and she rear-ended me going about 45 miles an hour and pushed my big truck. She was in a little car, and she pushed me completely through the intersection. And I woke up on the other side um, with a paramedic there saying, "Miss, are you okay? Are you okay?" And it was crazy. So I ended up having severe concussion from that accident, which led into what's called post concussion syndrome, which happens like um, I think it's like 6% or 8% of concussion victims can move into what's called post-concussion syndrome. And post-concussion syndrome is actually, from what my neurologist told me, because I was seeing a neurologist for about a year, it's where like your brain like has inflammation from the accident, but it doesn't know how to like turn it off. It doesn't know how to go reset. And so they put me on like so many drugs, like trying to like get my brain to like start functioning the way it used to, and nothing worked. And I've had a migraine for 3 years, like a constant migraine. Like I have a migraine right now. And for the first 6 months, like it was unbearable. Like I couldn't function. I laid in bed, like in a dark room. And I think I told you I have 8 kids. 8 kids don't do a lot of good things for a migraine. And I was dizzy from the post concussion syndrome, so I couldn't walk like a straight line. It felt like I was on a ship. So I would like have to hold onto the wall just to get to the bathroom. So it was brutal, and I had to close my art studio down. I had to close everything down, and then COVID. Like this is all right in the middle of COVID, and so like a year and a half in, and so basically like I couldn't work. Um, and I was in constant pain. And so finally, I don't know, like anybody who's sat in a bed for an extended period of time knows that like, and even like if you spend like a really sick week in bed, the anxiety begins to build. Like you're like, you're like, I can't get up, I can't do things. But like at the same time, you're like, I can't not do all these things that I need to do. And the anxiety starts to build and you start to like kind of feel crazy. Like I got to do anything but sit here. And I asked my wife to bring me my watercolors. I couldn't go into the basement because I was afraid of going down the stairs. And I walked into the kitchen and I set up my watercolors and I started to paint. And I just, for some reason, started painting green, just like all over this piece of watercolor paper, this big piece of watercolor paper. And then I started like painting little dots on it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a game. Like it's just like, I think I got a game here. And for the first time in like 9 months, I was like, wait a minute, I have something to do. Like, it felt so good. And I could function just enough to do this watercolor thing. And so I took a piece of paper and I drew like these pathways on the piece of paper. And then I got a new sheet of watercolor paper and I laid that over the top. And I used what's called Frisket. It's a watercolor tool where you can paint dots and then you can paint watercolor over that, and then you can take an eraser and erase those dots, and it leaves white paper underneath after you've watercolored. So I made frisket little dots for little mushroom paths, and I painted, where is it? Oh, it's right here. I'll show it to you. This came out of that day. So I painted this. Right? So pretty simple. Not a lot there. I made a little heart because I was in this really dark place in my life, right? I was in like this like constant pain. Like even my memories of that time period are like really dark and depressing and awful. But this made me happy. And so I had designed it so that it would work on a hex grid. And then I scanned this into my computer and I laid a hex grid over the top of it and I adjusted the art a little bit to fit. And then I printed that back out and then I cut those pieces out and I started like making pathways. And I was like, hey, this is fun. And then my wife said, we just started talking and she recommended gnomes as like a thing to add as far as like a, little tiny gnomes like this. So I started painting gnomes and like the game just sort of evolved. It just like came out of this process of me trying to feel better. And it was something that, like when I play games, I play like kind of heavier games and, like I like heavier games. I like things that are like really challenging and crunchy and stuff. But at the time, I couldn't handle crunchy and I couldn't handle that stuff because my brain was like, it was already just struggling to like walk to the kitchen. So I built a game that was very much like this wonderful, happy place that brought peace to my life, which is why I started painting this meadow. Because I'm like, what is a peaceful place? A meadow is a peaceful place. Like, and I could think about like the birds tweeting in the sky and the sun coming down and it just being like this lovely, wonderful moment. And so, really, like what Gnome Hollow is, and it was broken for a very long time because a guy with a concussion made it. But as I came further and further into health, right, through this process from this TBI, this traumatic brain injury, and I was able to clearly see the areas that were wrong and I could fix them. This game took me way too long to design. It took me like almost 2 years to get it to the point where it was like done. But it was a healing process for me. This game like fixed me. Like doing this process like made my life better again. I don't know how else to say it.
I love that, man. Not the whole injury portion and the suffering and all of that, but like that you were able to create despite that. And it's helped you heal. Because, whenever I started Blue Falcon board gaming, it was right after we had just had a miscarriage. It was like the day before Christmas Eve that we had the positive pregnancy test.
Oh,
So it was our second one. So, we were super excited. We did the little pregnancy reveal too early, but on Christmas Day and everything like that. And then a week later, we were in the ER and everything. So, like, I was just in
oh
a really
man.
bad spot. And I'd already been talking about like doing something with board gaming. And one of my buddies, he's got his PsyD and everything, and he was doing counseling and stuff. And he was like, and it was before this, and he was already like, dude, you already do a lot of stuff with vets because I'm a Marine Corps vet. I work for the VA. I'm a rater, so I rate disability claims. But I still go out and do other things, in the
Yeah.
community on the veteran side. And he's like, you love board games. He's like, once you combine something and do like, hey, here's some vet events for board games and stuff, and he's like, it seems like you use that for your mental health. I was like, yeah, I do. But then after the miscarriage, it was just really bad. And I had a buddy drive up from North Carolina and stay with me that weekend and everything. And me and him played games, and we all just kind of hung out and used games as a way to distract ourselves, basically. Um, so I was like, yeah, I'm like, I got to do something with board games and mental health, like it, not even vet focused, just mental health in general. But so even now, whenever I get into a funk or anything, I'm like, I got a game. I got to go, be able to escape everything that's going on, whether it's 45 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. Like, I need something to focus on to keep my mind off of all the other places that it shouldn't be.
No, like in games, like, and again, like I'm so sorry about that, like miscarriage. For people that haven't lived through that, that's traumatic for mom and dad both, right? Like it's so hard, and um, especially when that excitement's building. Board games and like any sort of thing like this, right? Sorry. Um, they really have a way of taking our minds out of our stress and let us solve another problem for a period of time. And in some ways, like it's a little vacation from our problem, right? And in my case, like this was a major vacation from my problem. Like I like poured myself into this um, as a way to like escape like constant misery. Like nothing helped, nothing fixed it. Um, and so I think I like went way too down deep into the rabbit hole. Um, but I love the idea that like that you're doing board game stuff specifically and like from the perspective of like how is this helping with our mental health? Because board games are bringing people together. You're building a support group of people who are all coming together and becoming your friends. Like it's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to engage with people that you don't know. Like putting a game on the table and saying, "Hey, can I show this to you?" Um, Such a fast way to make a friend, and I really think that board gamers are like kind of like a little bit of the best of humanity, kind of in a group, um, because they all know how to lose a game without being a dick. They all know how to like, well, they don't all know that, but most of them do. Um, they all know how to like sit down at the table and like teach the game with you, or they'll all take turns reading rules or clarifying, or like it's like a generally speaking, what you have is you have this organization that just sort of happens at every table, and people are all helping clean up at the end, and they're laughing and they're having like these moments of this joined experience, right? At the same time, they're having different experiences, but they're having the same experience at the same time. But then you're learning and growing, so it's like this really positive, like reinforcing organization or group of people. Not an organization; it's just a group of people. It's a subset. It's a I don't know what you call it, but that
Yeah,
all
it's like its own little microcosm.
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a microcosm. Um, and it's so positive and fun. And when you see people that you haven't seen in the community, dude, it's hugs around, man. Everyone's hugging. So just such a fun microcosm to be a part of.
Absolutely. So speaking of, let's have our own little microcosm here. I've got same
Ooh.
but different. So
Okay, I
this
haven't
is the
seen that.
same people that make What Do You Meme?
Okay.
So I want to give you some little prompts here and see what you can come up with. So our safe card is something you can say to an exterminator, and our risky card is and after getting a wedgie. So what is something that you could say to the exterminator and after getting a wedgie?
Oh man. Okay, so something you could say to an exterminator after getting a wedgie. So did I give him the wedgie or did I get the wedgie?
It'd be you. So, and
Okay, so
after
I got the
getting a
wedgie.
wedgie. So, not necessarily the exterminator giving you a wedgie, but something you could say to an exterminator and after you just got a wedgie.
Hmm. Okay. Sorry, I gotta think about this.
Mine's going to be really got deep in the crack.
Oh, I see. Okay, you got really.
Yeah.
All right. Is this how does this game work? Is there like a timer? What happens? Like, is this just like on the fly?
Yep.
Okay. Really got deep in the crack. Um. Oh man, you really crushed that thing. Do you think we're gonna be able to get the stain out? I don't know.
Something you can say at an all you can eat buffet and at your ex's wedding.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm never gonna eat that again.
I'm gonna say, yeah, enjoy my leftovers.
This game's
Let's
horrible.
do
It's
one more
bringing out
here.
the
One
worst in
more.
me.
Something you can say to a priest and when you walk in on your parents having sex.
Oh gosh. Um. oh.
I'm I'm gonna say sorry, Father.
oh no. Uh. Oh gosh, it's such a horrible vision. Like I don't ever like want that ever to happen. Like I just don't want it to happen. But let's see. I think it would be something along the lines of like, hey, isn't there supposed to be like a sheet right here? Like,
Are we supposed to be on our knees for this?
yeah, right. Oh gosh, like mixing sex and religion's awful. It's so
Uh,
horrifying.
it's a fun little game though. It's just got some random. You've got your random safe card, random risky card, and just see if you can make them
it's
connect
actually fun,
anyway.
right?
Some of the stuff I've pulled randomly, and I'm like, I can't think of a thing. It's just something. But then there's some that just match up, and you're like, okay, this is good. This
That's
It leads
actually
to some
funny.
little witty, fun conversation.
Well, and yeah, it turns into a conversation because like somebody gives an answer and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And I think that, again, that's more of like that microcosm. We like love to celebrate other people being successful. Like I loved some of the things that you came up with, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not as like witty as this guy over here. So you rocked it, but you were prepared and I wasn't.
I mean, I just randomly pulled them from the top of the
Oh, those are
deck here.
random for you too.
Yeah,
Wow, my
yeah.
my
There's
son
there's
actually
been
does
some
that.
where I've like, let's go for the middle here. Something you can say to your dog that just attacked a stranger, and while you're cheating on your partner.
Oh man, Uh, yeah. I mean, if you trespass, you get bit.
I see my wife saying that.
It's so horrible.
Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Bite.
Yeah. And I don't feel bad either. The
Yeah.
My son loves these. My 16-year-old, he loves like party games, and so he buys like party games all the time. He works at Walmart, and so he brings them home, and he's always bringing
That's where I
home.
got this one at.
Yeah. Well, they've really like improved their like collection. They're like,
Some of them have. We've got like 6 Walmarts within 25 minutes that we could hit up, and some of them it's still like this big of a selection,
oh
and then
really?
there's some that have like a whole aisle.
Oh,
So
all of the ones here all have like big aisles, and they're like getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
yeah,
So we've been able to see lots of really fun games that I didn't even know existed, but they love the party that like
yeah.
game thing. Yeah, they do really
You
well there.
to it be mass market stuff. It
Yeah,
actually just did a TikTok, and it was like, what do you want to get you got a board game in your life? What to get them for Christmas? I don't know, but it's not another copy of Ticket to Ride, just because Ticket to Ride's at Walmart.
yeah.
And what inspired that was my mom was at Sam's Club, and she started blowing my phone up. She's like, "Hey, do you have this thing called Catan? They've got it on sale right now for $20." And I was like, "Yes, mom, I know what Catan is."
Everybody knows what Falcon is.
And for like 3 days though, she was like, "Hey, did you go over to Sam's Club and look at that?" And I was like, "Oh my god!"
That's
Like,
awesome.
I
Just trying to
promise.
connect with you. It's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I
Well, that's
love
why I'm like, I appreciate the thought, but don't
my
get
mom.
Ticket to Ride for the board gamer in your life, unless it's the new Legacy Edition. But that's $120, and I doubt that anybody in my family is going to be anywhere near a store that has the Legacy Edition.
I haven't played it. Is it good?
I haven't played it yet. I just bought it. Well, I didn't buy it. I picked it up, but I have a buddy who he wanted it, so he
Yeah,
PayPal'd me the money and stuff, and I went ahead and grabbed it because it was their last copy.
yeah.
I got it from the boardroom in Hurricane, West Virginia. But I
Cool,
picked up what did I get? I got the 2 new starter decks for Disney Lorcana,
cool.
um, the Sleeping Gods, Red Cathedral from Devere,
I love that
and
game.
then 3 little mini games from Devere. It was Winter, Regine, and Blind Business. So that was like my little Black Friday small business Saturday haul from the local game store.
Love it.
And what was really cool was I cracked open the pack that came with the starter decks for Disney Lorcana.
Yeah.
So I had 2 packs. I cracked one open and I got $50 of store credit right off the rip. It was great. I had 3 legendaries in there and they were all going for like 25 to $35. And
It's
I was talking
awesome.
to the owner. I was like, "Hey, do you guys sell singles?" I'm like, "I'm not collecting it. I just want the starter decks." He's like, "Yeah, I'll give you store credit." So I essentially got Sleeping Gods for $50 because of that.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. We let's see. What did I pick up this week? I picked up Nucleum. Have
I
you
don't know
seen
if I've
that?
heard that one. I don't think so.
It's on the board game BGG like hotness right now. It's like I think number 9. It's like a really heavy, crunchy euro. And then I got let's see here. What else did I get this week? I bought 3 games. I can't remember the other ones. Oh, I got oh yeah, I got this. The White Castle from Devere. So I just got that. I'm pretty excited. I haven't played it yet, but
Heard a lot of good stuff about it. I haven't played it though. Man, Devere is slowly becoming like one of the publishers. I'm like, I haven't played a game from them that I haven't liked yet. Like, I obviously haven't played all of them, but
yeah.
Bamboo, I really enjoyed Bamboo. The
Oh, I
Luna
just got
Capital, I really enjoyed Luna Capital. Red Cathedral, I played that on the Meeples at Sea board game cruise. Loved it.
yeah. Red
So
Cathedral is actually like such a fantastic rondelle system. It's just so fun the way that it plays. Like, and they're fitting these big games in these little boxes, which is really crazy. Although I'm not sure how to get everything back into the White Castle box because there's so much stuff. But like, you're not gonna believe this, but this has a full size board in it. When you take it
one
out,
of the quad folds.
it's like an 8-fold. It
Okay.
like it is so big the way that this thing folds down. Like I'm like, holy cow! There is a huge board in this little box. So they're doing some interesting things actually. Like they're a company I'd love to work with. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't think I've actually played any games from them that I don't like or haven't enjoyed. I haven't played them all, but Red Cathedral is one of my like it's a go to. Like if a person's like, hey, I would like to play like a midweight, really crunchy game, it's so fun. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
All right. So people can get taco from you on your Etsy store or Amazon. Is there any other links that you want to mention before we jump off here?
Oh yeah. So you can always find access to all of the things I'm doing on www.levity.games. So if you go to my website levity.games, Levity .games, you can see like upcoming game designs that I'm working on. You can see any announcements. I've put this together and I'm trying to get it up and running. I'm going to be running like a designer blog where I'm like talking about like various like challenges and things that I've come overcome and uh, stuff that people can access. It's got links to my Etsy store, which I have like board game upgrade stickers and all sorts of stuff that I do there, and um, all my other projects. So I'm actually um, this weekend I'm going to be at PAX U. So I don't know if this is going to go live before then, but so this weekend I'll be at PAX U showing off a new game called Twinkle Twinkle, and it was selected for the PAX Rising Showcase. So I'm going to be in the Kickstarter booth, like sponsored by Kickstarter, to like show off this game, which will be really fun. So in that game, I watercolor this one. So I do all the art for my games. I don't know if people know that, but like, so I like did like alcohol inks for this, and these are like so cool. This was so much fun to work on. They actually look like space, which is really fun. But yeah, so anyway, if you're PAX U, come say hi. I'd love to meet you, and I'll have a copy of Gnome Hollow people can check out, and Twinkle Twinkle will be on the table being played.
Very nice. Do you know when we can expect the OP to put out Gnome Hollow?
Yeah. Okay. So, um, I think the announcement went out. So, I know they announced that they're doing it, but the current plan, I think I can say this, is that it's going to release at Gen Con next year. So I'm going to be at Gen Con, and then they'll be releasing it at Essen next year in Europe, and I will be at
Very
Essen.
nice.
So I'll be going with the op to there. To op there.
Awesome. Well, Ammon, I appreciate the time, man. It was a blast talking with you, learning about you, and I'm excited for the game too. Especially knowing that you've done the artwork on it too. There's something. I think there's something that hits different whenever the designer does the game and the
Yeah.
artwork itself, because it's like, okay, this is this entire person.
Well, what's funny? Well, like you're actually getting to play like a piece of me. Like it's so weird. Like I'm on the table in a sense. It's weird. And people when they find out that I'm the illustrator, they'll be like, "Wait, you made this?" And I'll be like, "I made it." Yeah. And they're like how? And I'm like, I don't have the time to tell you that. Like it's a lot. There's like I've been working on the re-illustration for Gnome Hollow, which I haven't released yet, because they brought in Manny Vega and he wrote the lore for Gnome Hollow. For he did Flamecraft. Manny's phenomenal. He's a like awesome guy, and so we ended up wanting to change some of the like the artwork to accommodate for some of the lore that he added, and it's awesome. But I've been working on it for a solid month, like 6 weeks of art, like full time. So I have a stack of watercolor paper this thick from all the paintings that I've made and then scanned in so that we can like build all the pieces that we need to build. So really fun to work on a project at this level.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show, Corey. Like this was fantastic and such a pleasure to meet you and hear your story. And if you ever need a playtester, I'd love to play your game.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get it on. So Hannah is finishing up all the art for me at the moment. As soon as I get all of the art assets, I'm going to try to get it onto Board Game Arena I've been
Cool.
talking with the developer to get it on there. That way, then I can start getting people to play test it.
Cool. That's awesome. I also, if you have it on like Tabletopia or TTS, I can do that too.
Sounds great. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much.